Hey folks, it's Chris here. I almost got hit by a car today, so I'm glad I can be here with you. Not that I think it would have taken me out entirely. It was in a neighborhood and a Mercedes, not like a bus going highway speed. But obviously harder to do this from the hospital. So I want to take a moment to appreciate that I'm intact. And also a bit like when I was trapped on the elevator for an hour, which of course was another video some time ago. I like to use these moments as a chance to talk about, think about some other kinds of things that come up for us. And this is actually something that I've had a few times happen in my life, and I suspect many people have. Something where I was very close to something very bad happening. And I think, they can have negative effects. I mean, right afterwards, I try to clear my head from it. There's kind of a whole experience around it. Just to kind of recreate the scenario briefly here, it's in a little residential neighborhood, crossing an intersection, middle of the intersection. I'm in sandals, or I'm in flip-flops without even backs on them, so I can't even run. But just a black Mercedes just comes tearing through and almost hits me. To the point I have to jump out of the way and yell like, "What the heck?" And the woman then proceeds to follow me and yell at me for what she says is jaywalking, when again I'm crossing an intersection. She's in an automobile. She claims I was running. Again, I'm in flip-flops. Couldn't have run. Anyway, to kind of clear my head from it, I go to the little corner store and just get myself a little vegan cookie. I don't know if that is where you're at, but at least here in California, a lot of the gas stations now have these pretty decent little vegan cookies, and they're kind of decently healthy. They're, obviously, too, they're still cookies. So there's a lot of sugar and other stuff. But, this is one of these moments I was like, I'm going to get myself a little vegan cookie. But when she asked me to just sign, and the way our little gas station at the corner here works is, no matter how small the purchase, in a lot of places don't make you sign if it's less than 20, 30 bucks, whatever. Credit card's all I had on me, so I still had to sign. But I struggled to sign it. My hand was so jittery. I could do the C, then I try again. And it's because my physiology and my mental state were both still amped up. Right? It's not, I mean, obviously a little bit in my head, but also just sheer adrenaline of, that's kind of thing that causes a fight or flight response in us when we feel our physical safety was nearly compromised. And again, I don't think it would have been the last of me or whatever, but certainly would have been no good for my legs and my schedule today and all that. But anyway, it's the kind of scenario that reminds us that no matter how well you're trying to live and conduct yourself and go about the things that are important to you, right? That even if you're making healthy choices, that even if you are just trying to take good care of yourself and be responsible and not do anything crazy, right? I'm not doing backflips on a motorcycle through a flaming hoop or whatever. I'm not even skydiving, which is, to be fair, like a reasonably well established, fairly safe practice in the scheme of things that recreational people do, like mountain climbing or whatever. I'm not doing anything risky or crazy, but it's something that still reminds us that any given day, this sounds morbid, it's not, we don't know how many more days we have, right? I mean, we get a clue as if the age obviously increments to a certain point, people start to plan around the possibility of common lifespans, but especially even when we are maybe in the first half, hopefully, of our expected statistical life frame, it doesn't actually mean we necessarily all get the remainder of that time. And something I've consistently tried to live by is this sort of effect of, if something ever happens, and it's not just a Mercedes that's going to hit me in the legs, it's like I say, a bus or a truck, and it's not just neighborhood speeds, but it's coming off a highway ramp or something, and if I wind up in a situation where I am basically bleeding out on the road, which again, morbid, and I apologize. But if I feel like I'm not even necessarily going to make it to the hospital, I don't want to be in a situation then where I wish there's something more I had gotten out of myself. That there's not something I should have said to somebody but had been putting off. That there's not something I should have written down but never wrote down. There's not something I should have created and put out there that I just didn't get to. Because we don't know how long we have. It's something that, in thinking about our longer term life plans, I might have told this story before in some other video, but Like I say, a little rattled today, so apology. I remember I was sitting on an airplane and I kind of planned out like kind of like a long-term path for like when I would try to get certain promotions in my life, and this is long ago, it was a decade plus. Try to figure out when I might try to start my own company, try to figure out what different directions and branches and pathways and choices might be along that way. Even just high level, just totally zoomed out, right? Like total roadmap. You know, it's like when you're making a cross-country trip and you're thinking this city, that city, that city. You're not looking at the streets. You're literally just like point A to point B to point C. That level of zoomed out, trying to do some life planning. And then some things happened to me that kind of stirred me up. It was not a car in that case, but something else that led me to realize, again, this kind of sense of I don't know how long I have. And it actually helped push me to realize there's no reason for me to give that goal 10, 20, 30 years, 40 years of my life if I can find some way to do it in less time. That even knowing what my objectives were I was trying to get to helped me get to them sooner by realizing that maybe I don't need some of these steps that I thought would be necessary in between. And I'm reminded a little of my dad was in the Army, and he told me the stories were like, he probably eats too fast still. He's now a retirement age man, but like still eats too fast because when they would sit down to eat, they never knew exactly how long they'd have to eat. They didn't have a great way to keep track of how long they'd been in that line or when they get called back or whatever. So they just woof it down because they didn't count on having a fixed break like we would in civilian life. And I have no idea what circumstances are for different eras of the military, for different branches of the military. All I can speak to is this one isolated story of, for all I know, it's just how the base he was at was run or whatever. It's something where we don't know how long we have. If we really are aware of that, it can affect our pacing. And this isn't trying to freak anybody out. It's not to try to put any panic in anybody. But it is to say that there's this value in a sense of urgency in terms of not always knowing how long you're going to even be able to do the thing. Right? If it feels like you could do it any day, if it feels like you could do it at any point, you can always give that speech. You could always write that story. You could always do whatever to start that company, build that game. I'll tell you another story. And so actually last night we had a meetup out at Turbo Button. I love those guys. VR. I know them from Georgia Tech. They do Adventure Time VR. Cool people. They have little board game nights there occasionally for networking. And met up with another former coworker who was there. I'm not going to name names here because it's his choices, up to him. But he's a guy who, like, super capable in technical skills. Incredibly, both his background's really solid, his project history is super solid, his skills are just without, I'm going to say without question, obviously that's not how these things work, but like it really is just like, he's kind of an authority on pretty hard things to do really well, just really solid, strong skills. But there's another side to him, where this guy I'm talking about who I ran into last night also has like a really big heart. Like in a way that just not everybody does. In a way that, like my memory of this guy was he was a coworker of mine now many, many years ago. And like I was just having a rough time of it at the workplace. And he just did a really good job. It's kind of like helping to cool me down, helping to give me some perspective, helping me feel like, you know, he'd always be a friend or whatever, no matter what else I chose to do. It wasn't just about the company or something. It wasn't just about that game or that product or that just kind of helped give me some perspective in a way that was like really helpful. Now, opportunities and jobs and companies don't tend to pay as well for that set of skills, for having a big heart, for being able to influence people in that way. But that's like a characteristic of this person. Like that has been pervasive of his whole life. That wasn't like a one-on-one interaction only. That's this kind of person this man is. And he's actually currently at a crossroads figuring out what he's going to do next in his career path stuff. And he's weighing some things where there's some companies who are, big companies will basically pay him almost any sum of money to go do his technical things there. But it's really, man, I really kind of hope that he finds some way in his life to make it work so that his next focus can be something that really leverages the fact that he's got that heart to him in a way that not everybody does. Because I think it's going to be a good influence on more people. I think it's going to be just good for more people in a way that he's got just bulletproof technical skills, but so do so many other people. Right? I don't know. And it's something where it always feels like, as people kind of go through their career paths, there's like this step, step of, you know, what's going to pay me best next, where's the opportunity at, whatever. And let me be clear, too, this is a case where, at least in this particular story, the person's done very well in previous positions in a way that kind of doesn't feel that intense pressure on. He's not having to, like, try to make ends meet. He's okay for a while to explore other avenues, to explore other options. And maybe it's the kind of thing I mean of, like, it feels like, oh, you know, I could always get to it. I could always get to it. I could get to it tomorrow. I could get to it next year. I could get to it in 5 years. Maybe my next job. Maybe the job after that one. And we don't always know that we will still be here longer than the current job, or that there will be that same opportunity in the longer term than there is presently. And so that's all. It's, I mean, it's, you know, it's a story it's almost a trope sometimes. There's this moment from Fight Club, which for all its faults, and I'll admit it's got some darkness in it. But there is this moment, right, where they kind of like threaten a person's life in a way that obviously, again, not great, don't do that, but try to help put a person on a path of feeling some sense of urgency on picturing if he couldn't have his future and then realizing when he can, the freedom that he's got. And I think I bring this up today because I hope that you don't need a car to almost hit you to be able to decide to pivot your life, or that you don't need what in my case was a rough medical diagnosis earlier in life to help realize that you've got this future ahead of you, that there's opportunities not just out there, not just sometime in the future, but right now, that if you're not making full advantage of, you can be. That I hope it doesn't have to involve some sort of mildly traumatic or fight or flight incident to kind of maybe stir things up, apply some sense of urgency. And again, not any kind of unhealthy, obsessive degree. Just simply realizing that if it's something that you're aiming to do in 5 years, aiming to do in 10 years, aiming to do in 15, 20, someday, is there some way you could start doing something today that starts inching you towards that? Or something you start doing? And sometimes, like I say, sometimes it's getting it down and out of you. A lot of what has come from me in terms of my ebooks, my video courses, my groups that I've started, including those groups I've started and been able to step away from by kind of setting them up to self-run, has been because I don't want the work I've put into figuring things out to just be vanished or disappeared, to just be lost. I'd like that to be something that other people can build upon, get a head start from, benefit from, and that involved getting it out of myself. And that was literally part of what helped drive me to do that in a way that hopefully doesn't sound morbid. So that's it for the day. I apologize if it seems like kind of a unhappy topic. Maybe occasionally there's some good in there to look at these things that, like I say, they can stir us up. I think I'm back down from it in a good way. But I just want to kind of share that as part of my day and hopefully a useful thought for folks. That's it for the day. No URLs for me to point to today because that's not the usual kind of message or gig, right? Thanks always for following along. I really appreciate you being here, and glad I could be here with you today too. That's it for now. Have another video for y'all tomorrow. Bye for now.